Most people think the first $100,000 is a savings goal. I do not. I think it is a structural threshold. On one side of that threshold, you are still carrying almost all the weight yourself. Your paycheck does the heavy lifting. Your attention does the heavy lifting. Your willpower does the heavy lifting. Every repair matters. Every late fee matters. Every wrong turn matters. Every vacation requires negotiation. Every month feels like it needs management. On the other side of that threshold, something subtle but important changes. Money starts helping. Your investments begin doing a little work. Your confidence changes. Your options widen. Your decisions stop feeling so fragile. You still need discipline. You still need judgment. You still need to work, but the machine begins to turn. That is why the first 100,000 matters so much. Not because it is glamorous, because it changes the slope of the game. The reference document starts exactly there. It says saving $100,000 is not just a random number, but a tipping point, the first taste of financial freedom, and the stage where money starts working faster and more powerfully for you through compounding frugality turn. 44 file 12 fe, but here's the uncomfortable part. Most people never get there, and not because they are foolish, not because they are incapable, not because they ordered one too many salads or forgot to reuse a paper towel. They do not get there because they try to solve a structural problem with temporary effort. This month I will do better. This month I will spend less. This month I will really focus. This month I will finally get serious. But a person without a system is not really serious. He is improvising. Improvisation is not a wealth plan. It is how the future gets delayed while the present keeps billing you. That is the deeper point hidden inside the reference document. That does not really present the first $100,000 as a challenge of trying harder. It presents it as the result of building repeatable systems around spending, earning, debt, automation, annual investing increases, emergency reserves, and simple investing. Fe turn 44 file 12 fe turn 44 file 14 fe turn 44 file 11 fe. That is why if I had to rebuild from zero, I would not begin by asking what stock should I buy. I would begin by asking what system is carrying my money now. Because if the answer is no system, then the stock question is premature. A leaky pipe does not need better water. It needs repair. That is the first lesson. Now let me deal with one of the biggest myths people love because it flatters hope without demanding structure. If I just earned more, I would be rich. If you just earn more, you would have more money flowing through the same habits unless the structure changed. Higher income helps. I want people to earn more. I have always believed that earning more matters. But income alone is not the answer. If it were, every household earning 6 figures would feel secure. They do not. The reference document says this directly. It points out that even households earning between $100,000 and $150,000 often still worry about bills and argues that how people feel about money is often disconnected from how much they actually earn. Fe turn 44 file 12 fe, that is because the world is very efficient at giving you bigger ways to spend bigger income. A larger house, a more expensive car, a better hotel, a more prestigious lifestyle, a more elegant version of the same stress. That is not wealth. That is escalation. And I have never been interested in escalation for its own sake. I have been interested in a rich life today, and an even richer life tomorrow. That means one thing, spend extravagantly on the things you love, cut costs mercilessly on the things you do not. The reference file states this very clearly. It rejects joyless deprivation and instead argues for conscious spending. Spend more on what you genuinely love and cut hard on what you do not care about. Fe turn 44 file 12 fe turn 44 file 14 fe. That is one of the healthiest money philosophies in the file because it assumes something important. Your money should reflect your values, not your insecurity, not your social comparison, not whatever spending categories other people happen to normalize. And yet many people never do the hard work of deciding what they actually care about. They say they love everything. No, they do not. They simply do not want to make trade-offs. And the first 100,000 is made of trade-offs. The source says this too, in its own more direct way. It argues that people do not care equally about every category. and that once they get honest about what truly matters, it becomes easier to cut the rest and redirect those dollars toward wealth and the parts of life they genuinely value. Fay-Felicite Fay-Turn 44 File 14 Fay, that is the C in the CEO system. Cut costs intelligently, not theatrically, not on everything, on the things that do not matter, and then the E earn more. This matters because there is a ceiling on what you can cut, but there is no ceiling on what you can earn. Now, I do not mean become a clown on the internet selling hustle fantasies. I mean learn the actual skill of earning. More negotiating is a skill. Interviewing is a skill. Building a side business is a skill. Improving your RFA sum fay is a skill. Finding a better paying role is a skill. Selling is a skill. The source presents earning more this way too. It says income alone will not make you rich. But earning more is still a major part of the overall system and should be treated as a real skill that can be learned and improved. Fay-Felicite Fay-Turn 44 File 14 Fay, that is exactly right. You do not worship income, you use it, you turn more of it into assets, and then comes the optimize your finances. This is where the machine begins. Most people still manage money as though it should require constant emotional attention. I think that is a mistake. A sound financial life should not depend on daily heroics. It should depend on structure. That is why I love automation. Automation is not laziness. It is design. The reference document describes an automation flow where money comes in and then automatically moves to savings and investment accounts before you get a chance to spend it. It argues that this is psychologically powerful because it removes temptation and makes guilt. Free spending possible after the important moves have already happened. Fay-Felicite Fay-Turn 44 File 11 Fay-Turn 44 File 4 Fay, that is exactly how you turn intention into reality. Paycheck lands, a portion moves to savings, a portion moves to investing. The remainder is what life gets to work with. Now you no longer need to ask every day whether you should save. You already saved. You no longer need to feel guilty about spending every small thing. The future already got paid. That is a different emotional life. And if you want one tiny rule that carries enormous force, I would borrow the 1% December increase from the source. It is one of the smartest simple ideas in the whole file. The reference document says that if you are investing 10% of your income, raise it to 11% every December. Because the change is so small, most people barely notice it. And because it is percentage-based, it scales automatically with raises and higher income. The file says that this alone can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. Fay-Felicite Fay-Turn 44 File 11 Fay. That is the sort of rule I admire. Small enough to survive, strong enough to matter. Wealth is often built not by dramatic behavior, but by rules that are humble enough to last. Now, while we are building wealth, we must build protection. I do not trust aggressive investing without a moat. That is not bravery. That is fragility dressed as confidence. The reference document uses Buffett's comment about Berkshire being set up so it will never run out of money as a bridge into the idea of a personal financial moat. It defines that moat as 3 to 6 months of living expenses in an emergency fund, sometimes even 12 months for extra peace of mind. Fay-Felicite Fay-Turn 44 File 11 Fay-Turn 44 File 3 Fay, that is the right instinct. A moat changes your relationship with bad luck. Without it, every surprise becomes a threat. With it, surprises are still annoying, but they do not automatically become financial trauma. And let me make one point very clearly, because people love to confuse roles. Your emergency fund is not an investment account. The source says this explicitly too. Emergency money should be accessible and predictable. Investing is for money you will not need for years. If an emergency happens, you do not want to be forced to sell volatile assets into weakness just to cover ordinary life. Fay-Felicite Fay-Turn 44 File 11 Fay-Turn 44 File 3 Fay. That is why jobs matter. Emergency money has one job. Be there, not impress you. Not maximize yield at the cost of safety. Be there. Now, once the foundation is stabilized, the next question becomes where to invest. And again, I prefer simple, low-cost, durable answers over exciting nonsense. The reference document says the speaker invests the vast majority of net worth in index funds and target date funds. It describes index funds as diversified baskets of stocks and target date funds as all-in-one options that automatically become more conservative over time. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 3 Phi, that is exactly where most people should begin. Index funds are humble and powerful. Target date funds are simple and effective. Neither one makes you feel like a genius. That is fine. I am not trying to feel like a genius. I am trying to get rich quietly. And if you want one more reason simplicity wins, look at cost. 1% sounds tiny. It is not tiny over decades. The reference document gives a devastating example where the difference between paying a 0.2% fee and a 1% fee over 35 years can amount to nearly $400,000. Another uploaded file gives a related example where a $100,000 portfolio at 7% real return over 30 years grows to about $761,000 with no fee, but only about $574,000 with a 1% annual fee, a loss of roughly $186,000. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 3 Phi-turn 44 file 7 Phi, that should cure a lot of people of the need to have a guy. Sometimes advice is worth paying for. Of course it is. Complex situations exist, project-based guidance exists, hourly fiduciaries exist. But the lazy 1% toll booth, simply because it feels comforting to say, I have someone, can quietly eat a meaningful share of your freedom. That is money that should have belonged to your future. Now, we cannot talk about the first 100,000 without talking about debt. I know people do not like this part. Good. I do not need them to like it. I need them to see it. High interest debt is where speed matters. The source makes this brutally clear. Credit card interest around 27% destroys wealth faster than a 7% investment return can build it. And the document compares carrying that debt to trying to run a race with a 200-pound weight vest. Once the debt is gone, all that cash flow can finally be redirected into saving and investing. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 14 Phi-turn 44 file 2 Phi. Exactly. There is no cute portfolio hack that outruns 27% interest consistently and sanely. If you are carrying that, then that is the fire. And grown behavior is not whining about the fire, it is putting it out. The source suggests using debt calculators, paying extra toward balances, setting up automatic payments, and calling creditors to ask for lower rates. It says that these calls can take only minutes and save meaningful amounts of money. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 2 Phi, that is what adulthood looks like, not motivational slogans administration. Now, I also like a nuance in the broader uploaded material. After getting some breathing room saved and tackling the truly destructive debt, a person can often continue building the emergency fund while beginning to invest at the same time. It does not always need to be a false all or nothing sequence. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 13 Phi-turn 44 file 6 Phi, that is psychologically smart. Progress in multiple directions often keeps people engaged better than forcing them to finish one giant mountain before starting another. Now let us talk about the traps that destroy the first 100,000. The source names 4. I would keep all 4. The first is get rich. Quick trash, meme stocks, social media fantasies. Half understood real estate deals. Exhaustion marketed as ambition. The source rejects all of this and says real wealth is almost always built through smart systems that take time. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 10 Phi. That is exactly right. Real wealth usually looks boring while it is being built. The second trap is toxic frugality extremism. Walking miles to save a few dollars. Bragging about deprivation, making your life as small as possible and calling it mastery. The source mocks this too and argues that the real goal is not self-imposed deprivation, but learning both the skill of saving and the skill of spending. Phi-phylocyte Phi-turn 44 file 10 Phi, that is the right distinction. A rich life is not a starved life, it is an intentional one. The third trap is regret. I should have started at 20, maybe you should have, and you did not. The source says this directly, we cannot go back in time, but we can stop making the same mistake twice. Fay file a site. Fay turn 44 file 10 Fay. Exactly. Regret is useful only if it turns into action. Otherwise, it is just a different form of self-destruction. And the fourth trap is the optimization spiral. This one is especially popular among bright people. They chase tiny improvements that flatter their identity while avoiding the larger structural decisions that would actually change their lives. The source calls this out directly too, criticizing the obsession with micro hacks that might save a few dollars while missing the larger purpose of money and the larger system that actually builds wealth. Fay file site Fay turn 44 file 10 Fay. That is why I say over and over. The first 100,000 is not built by tricks. It is built by a system that knows what to cut, a system that knows how to earn more, a system that automates, a system that increases its investing rate over time, a system that kills destructive debt, a system that builds a moat, a system that uses low-cost investing instead of ego, a system that ignores social media nonsense. And once that system is in place, something beautiful happens. You stop needing to decide every day whether you deserve a better future. The system already made that decision. Your transfers happen, your savings happen, your investing happens, your moat grows, your debt shrinks, and one day you look up and realize the first 100,000 is no longer an aspiration. It is sitting there quietly. Not because you became a different species, because you finally stopped treating money like a weekly emergency and started treating it like a machine that, in my experience, is how the first 100,000 is really built. Not by intensity, by architecture.